Hello. I hope you didn't hear that. Welcome. I had a notification on my phone. This is where I film it on, so hopefully you heard none of that. Star Wars Choices 1. Legends. Such a such a mixed bag. The last 100 pages were good. First 200 were kind of hit and miss. So we again have Mara Jade and the Hand of Judgment and Luke, Leia, and Han doing stuff. But this time, the crux of the story is that the rebels are trying to find a new base. Because Yavin 4 was found out in the last one. That was their big base. But I don't even know if they still use it, but they can't use it now because they blew up the Death Star over there, and now they know about it. They gotta find somewhere else. Now remember, the first book, Allegiance, takes place 2 months after the events of Episode 4. But still in the same year as Episode 4. But this one takes place 8 months after, so it's probably soon to a year after. But not yet. But anyway, so they found about this guy named Ferez, who's supposedly going to give them all this stuff for freezies, and even though he's a Imperial dude, so kind of like the dude from the last book, Cord, or whatever his name was. I don't know how you say that name. Choard, but basically he's supposed to be giving them a new base. Mara Jade finds out. She's supposed to go and assassinate him. You're like, oh, it looking really similar here. She recruits the Hand of Judgment team from the previous book, and she's like, you're going to help me. So they do. We have Luke in here. We have Han. We have Leia. Han has this whole subplot where he's annoyed that no one's telling him about stuff because he's like, why aren't you telling me all this important information about stuff? And they're like, well, because you're technically not a part of the rebellion. You haven't accepted a rank. So you're basically just a soldier. So you have the information that you need to know. We're not giving you any more than that. And he gets annoyed by that. And General Reekin's like, it's pretty simple. Just become a part of us, and we'll give you rank high enough because you're clearly smart enough for one, and you have the skills. We would gladly give you a high position rank and give you everything that you need to know, but you don't want to join us. So that's the whole thing for a bit. Leia's just kind of there. She, of course, has her whole thing. This is where we really start to realize that they like each other, but they're still not going to do anything about it. Thrawn is slightly in this trilogy. Or sorry, not trilogy, in this book. Now, I have to mention, for me, I'm going through the EU for the very first time. So I have not read the Thrawn trilogy because I'm reading these in chronological order. Because I started, the first EU book I read was the Darth Bane trilogy. And then I went straight to Darth Plagueis. So I have not read everything from that past era. Not everything moving forward, but there was a book called Outbound Flight. I did not know about it when I was buying the books that I have. There's also audiobooks I'll be listening to that I found for free, YouTube and other places that I'm not going to say because I don't want it taken down. But the first time you technically would see Thrawn chronologically is all the way back during the Republic. Back when Anakin was around. Back when Obi-Wan was still around and all that. So it's the first time you would have actually seen him. But I don't have that book. So for me, this is definitely the first time seeing him. And he's cool. I mean, he seems definitely like a Sherlock Holmes type of dude. He's not technically the bad guy in this one. He's the good guy in a sorts. So it was interesting to see him for the first impression. But the same thing with Mara Jade as this one. It kind of expects you to already know these people because it's a prequel made after the fact. This was made in 2011. along with the last book, I think. So these were made like pretty soon to the Disney buyout that happened, because that happened in 2014. So this is nearing that time. This is like only 3 years before that. And the Thrawn trilogy was made in the 90s. So but I'm looking forward to the Thrawn trilogy, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot better than this, because I definitely feel this is not one of Timothy Zahn's strongest novels that he's written. I mean, I haven't read all of them, but everyone praises the Thrawn trilogy, so I can only imagine that it has to be splendid. But this is, to be honest, it's kind of mediocre. But anyway, so you find out, because you think it's kind of be like the same similar plot, like this guy's working, he's a bad guy, but then you find out that at first, it does do a good job of kind of tricking me, because at first, you find out that the person in charge of this place, Paul Miner, you find out that he's being coerced because his daughter and wife are being held captive, and so he has to obey. And I thought, wow, maybe this book is like really showing us, like, you know, there are evil on both sides, and that someone in the rebellion is actually making them do this, which is not okay. That's messed up. But then it turns out that there's, I'm not going to tell you in case you decide to read it, but there's a third party, which is actually orchestrating both sides to further his own ends. We also get to see Pelion, which I know is like, I've heard people explain him as sort of the Watson to Thrawn's Sherlock, and they don't meet in this book. I know he's going to be a big part, or he's going to have a relatively big part in the Thrawn trilogy, but they talk over, like, you know, comms. They never actually meet in person. I'm assuming staying with continuity, because either the Thrawn trilogy they've met for the first time, or they met sometime before that. I don't know. I'll see when I read it. But yeah, so sorry, I'm trying to remember, because the first 200 was so boring. There was always parts in between it that I was like, oh yeah, I'm in it, and then there are other parts I was like, oh my god, like, I've all the other EU books I've read so far, besides this and Allegiance, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm eating it up, you know, just like, give me more. With this, I kept checking the time, I kept checking the page, like, how much more of this do I have to read? Because I'm a stickler. Like, I bought it, so I'm gonna read it, but then also, my brain, I don't know what's wrong with me, I cannot do things out of order. Like, yes, the original trilogy was made first, right? It was made in the 70s and 80s. But if I'm gonna watch the Star Wars movies, I'm gonna start with episode 1. Because I have to go in chronological order. And now with the EU, it's going to be even worse. Because I'm going to eventually buy, not everything, but like a lot of it. And I'm going to have to go all the way back to Tales of the Jedi and stuff. Read all of that. Read the Darth Bane trilogy. Read Darth Plagueis. Read the Jedi Apprentice series. What is the other one? The one with Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's a young adult series. Jedi Quest. Something like that. But I'm going to have to read all of that before I finish just the prequel trilogy. That's because it's just how my brain is. Like, I have to. Like, I know not everyone loves the Hobbit movies. They are certainly not the greatest bit of cinema. The Hobbit trilogy is certainly, in all respects, superior to the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, at the very least. So, it's bearable for me. I can deal with it. It's not amazing. It's not even great. Or some might argue it's not even good. I think it's okay. And because I can stand it, and it doesn't make me want to barf, like the sequel trilogy, I'm willing to watch that before I watch The Lord of the Rings. And it's annoying, because it is kind of boring. There are parts that kind of suck about The Hobbit, but I always force myself to watch that before I watch Lord of the Rings. So it's just kind of to my detriment, because the first one's really boring, and except for certain aspects. Kind of like this. There are parts that are really good, and then parts that are really, really boring. So, like I said, the last 100 pages had me going for a bit. It's kind of annoying because, like, Mara even shouts to Luke. Now, I know their future. I know they get married. But as far as I understand it, the Thrawn trilogy is supposed to be the first time they meet, or whatever. or the backstory is that she was supposed to kill him in Jabba's palace, but didn't get the chance for whatever reason. But still, like, she still talked to him. Like, they were far away, right? So they couldn't see each other very well. But, like, why? Why do that? It just seems so bizarre. Like, up until then, it was fine. It was still like, why? But, like, because they were in the same place, but they weren't seeing each other. I was like, oh, that's kind of stupid, but whatever, you know. But then, you know, she actually, like, talked to him for a second. I was just like, why? I don't know. It just seemed kind of stupid to me. I thought the twist was okay. There were a couple twists in this book. They were okay. I really love the Hand of Judgment. I think the whole crew is the best parts of both of these books. Because to be honest, this book is for Mara Jade fans. But as I'm going in chronological order for the first time, this is my first introduction to Mara Jade. And I have to say, she's cool. But I'm not compelled by her character. Not yet. I hope that changes. You know, once she meets Luke and they get married and they meet in the Thrawn trilogy and all that. I hope that gets better. Because right now, whatever. She's there. I really don't feel it. And after just coming off of the Han Solo trilogy of A.C. Crispin and Brian Daley and L. Neil Smith with the Lando trilogy, those were all, like, really good. And then we get to this and it's just like, I don't know. Definitely was not the greatest. If you're a Mara Jade fan, you're going to want to get these books. But they are definitely skippable. Again, still better than anything the sequel trilogy gave us. But just, it's kind of boring in some parts. And some people might feel differently. But for me, it just... I mean, I'm going to read them every time I go through the EU now because I paid for them. And I'm going to get my money's worth. But it's definitely going to be something like, oh no, here we are again. Time to go through these again. Like, that's how I'm going to feel. Like, whenever I go through the entire expanded universe... and I finally get to these books, I'm like, oh god, here we go, and I'll have to deal with that before moving on. So, for me, up next, I have episode 5, and then we have Shadows of the Empire, so that's going to be interesting. But, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I love Legends. Even these stories, I still love it. I'm excited to see all the future stuff, because I have 2 more of the original trilogy movies, and then everything else I read and listen to and whatever else after that fact is post Return of the Jedi. Which basically means all of that is sequel trilogy material, but better. And I get all of that after I finish Return of the Jedi, so I'm looking forward to that. Because all this stuff I've been doing has been either, you know, during the prequel trilogy, before the prequel trilogy, in between... the original trilogy, and I'm just excited to see what takes place after Return of the Jedi in this, because that's where the universe would essentially, you know, branch off. So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me. I love Legends, and I'm just excited to go through all this with you guys. And if you like the sequel trilogy, you're probably not watching at this point, but if you are, I know I come off really mean, but I was just really disappointed about those movies. And it breaks my heart. I don't like what they did to Luke or anything, and I don't like Ben Solo that much. And it upsets me. But it's fiction. If you like it, then all the power to you. Let me not take that away from you. But as for me, I'm going to enjoy this particular galaxy far, far away, which will be in my heart, in my head, the true canon to Star Wars. Till next time, guys. Shadows of the Empire. It's gonna be a fun ride. See you then.